Sports Broadcast Masterclass with Dumi.
A very warm welcome to everyone that just joined us. And also, let me just extend to everyone that's joining, feel free to ask whatever questions that you want to ask Thato, because this is mainly for you. I do have my selfish questions, but also feel free to ask whatever question that you want to ask, especially with regards to her journey as a whole. So Thato, we're talking about the art and the craft of storytelling as a sports broadcaster. Do you agree that storytelling is one of the key skills you need to have as a sports broadcaster?
Yeah, it definitely is a key skill to me, because essentially you're a journalist, and what is the basis of being a journalist? You are the go-between between the audience and what they're seeing every single day. So you need to be able to concisely tell a story in a certain amount of time, just like print media. They've also got a number of words that they can use. And it's very key because, we want to know why something is happening, where it's happening, what is happening, why is it happening, how is it happening. And sports journalism is storytelling, just in a more creative way, a fun way.
Absolutely. And would you say that you've always liked to tell stories growing up?
Yeah, definitely. Being a journalist is also like being a creative. It's like being a songwriter. It's like being a film director. You take something that you see and then you have to objectively be able to retell it to somebody else. And it mustn't be broken telephone. So I think it is key, to what we do every single day. But yeah, storytelling is a big part of that and what we do every day.
And have you always wanted to get into this industry? I know that at one stage you actually wanted to become a political journalist, right? So where did you and sports meet?
Like I'm saying, I've always been creative. Growing up, I used to enter I Stateford's poetry. I went to an art school. I love being on stage. I love being in front of people. So it started a long time ago. And then growing up, I really wanted to be a political journalist. But it was so depressing. It was so depressing because you knew that as a gatekeeper, some of the things you can't really tell people. You know that half of the people are lying. So I figured I really love sport. It's got less stress. So let me take my journalistic skills and go use it as sports. And it also somehow just fell into my lap. Tim, I think you know that you worked with Zukile Majova before. And this was at YFM. I was doing political reporting. We even had a show every Thursday that I used to produce, all about politics. And then DJ Swoo came to YFM. And the morning he came, he didn't have a new sports reader. So I just went into the booth and read sports for him. And literally the rest is history. So that's how it happened.
But then, I mean, with you saying, okay, you worked under someone like Zukile Majova, who was brilliant in terms of teaching those that are coming in. I remember starting at I was clueless about how do I even write a story. I'm going to have to get training. But then for you, how did you find yourself starting in the industry and now having to start telling these sports stories? Because obviously on radio, you need to set up a picture for whoever is listening to you and make your listeners understand whatever story that you're talking about.
I suppose that's why they call radio theater of the mind. You have to basically draw a picture for someone without any visual aids. And with television broadcasting, it's also the same. But then now people can visually see what you're talking about. So you change it just a little bit with regards to that reporting. And television is something that I'd also done when I was younger. So moving into the television space wasn't that difficult. Obviously, it's difficult because sport is a male-dominated area, so it really is a bit different, but it's still the same in essence. You're still telling a story. You're on television. You're still telling a story on radio. The crux of it stays the same.
How do you
Yeah.
find your voice in all of this, as you're mentioning the fact that obviously it's male dominated, and now you're this lady and you're coming in and you're like, guys, I've got something different to offer, very unique, but it's very good.
Yo, crafting your own space, bruh. They won't give you a seat at the table. You have to make your own table. It has been hard. I won't say that hasn't been hard. Um, but now nearing almost 20 years of doing it, you finally get to have your own table, your own seat, and still be able to sit with everybody. I think everybody has their own personal journey with that. But yeah, you really have to create space for yourself.
How did you do it? Like, give us practical example of how hard it was for you, and then how hard you pushed to make sure that you're part of that table.
I think you do realize that it's more like getting respect from your fellow colleagues, fellow journalists. And I think everybody has to struggle for that space. I remember when I started, I'd go to press conferences with Len, and I'd be the only female in the press conference room. And every time you put up your hand, they wouldn't even bring the mic to your end. So you needed to be smart, approach the interview the way you want it, go around the stop nonsense that they're putting in front of you. But it's having to gain respect from your fellow colleagues, and it's like being led into the club. But I think it's the work. The work has to speak for itself. The work is what puts you in that space. It's the work.
I can imagine, and I mean, I can concur with what you're saying in terms of as a lady, you get to a place where it's only guys, and now you have to raise your hand and ask a question, and you're not allowed to. More like you're not allowed to, because they just like, who are you? Do you
Who
even
are
know what you're talking
you?
about? Yes. But then for ladies then that are starting, because I tend to get so many questions in terms of how do I get to be taken seriously already in this industry, that I'm not taken seriously because I'm a female. So what do I need to do to be taken seriously as a female in sports?
I think, like I'm saying, to meet the work, you have to put in the work into your own work. You have to let your stories, your work speak for you. And that's when people will be like, huh, okay, she's got something, you know. Be different, offer brilliant, objective, detailed work. And really, your work does speak for you and stand out for you. And that's how you create a name for yourself. You're not going to be celebrated by everybody. You don't need to be celebrated by everybody. You just need to know that you've put in enough work to get there. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're in these spaces for a reason. If the door's already open, you're already in. It's how you maintain that and make sure that you stay in with your work. So when you knew, I mean, it's probably taken me about a good 10 years before people raise their heads and like, oh, okay, she doesn't just read Twitter on TV. um, but it was a lot of hard work, but I needed to pat myself on the back first and not wait for others to give me that gratification. If you wait for people to give you that gratification, you're never going to get it. So as young ladies coming into this industry, work, put your head up. But work, it is going to be tough, but I don't think anybody has had it easier, whether you female or male, to get into the space. I think it's just a tough space nonetheless.
Do you think for you, I mean, obviously you work at Supersport and you've worked alongside the likes of Carol and Robert Marawa. Do you think working alongside them somehow helped put a stamp on the fact that, listen, there is a Thato Moeng out there and she knows what she's talking about?
Yes and no. Um, I didn't get to Super Sport because I worked with somebody who was well known. You know, Super Sport heard of my talent and they called me over. It does um, give you a stamp of credibility just a little bit, but it helped in a sense where you get to learn from them, soak up what they also do, see how they do things. And I think that is the benefit of working alongside those juggernauts in sports. You get to learn from them. But I don't think, hopefully not, people started taking me seriously because I'm associated with so and so. Um, I think, yeah, that association did help a little bit, but you still need to. I'm still Thato, still Carol, still Roberts, and we can all coexist in one space. But if I didn't work hard, if I didn't really put in the hours into my work, I don't think even if you sat next to the president, people would take you seriously. You know, yeah.
It's all about putting in that work day in, day out, I guess, especially when you're starting. But you cover different sports besides football, as much as a lot of people obviously know you as that person in football. And I'm seeing those questions coming in. I will incorporate them
Okay.
as we go. But with you having covered the different sports from football to netball, do you find that when it comes to your storytelling, because I feel like whether you're an MC, whether you're on radio, whether you're on TV out there, reporting or building up to a game, you are somehow telling us a story.
Yeah.
Does the style of your storytelling change based on which sport you're covering?
Um, I suppose it does, because at the end of the day, like I'm saying, you're the gatekeeper between what's happening and the audience, and you are there to come and concisely somehow sum up what's just happened. So something like the Comrades Marathon. I've been doing the Comrades Marathon, which is absolutely a vibe, and that's a 15-hour broadcast. And within those 15 hours, you need to know at what stage, what's the importance of the story, because you're building up a 15-hour story. Unlike before a match, it's 90 minutes and you only have 2 minutes at the beginning of the match, 2 minutes just at halftime, and 2 minutes at the end. So the storytelling does change depending on what is needed from that. I bet you would also know reporting on something on radio is different. You've got 2 minutes to give us four stories, whereas on television, you've got an hour to perhaps talk about four stories. So it does change depending on the medium. But at the end of the day, the key factors of journalism still stand. How did it happen? Why did it happen? Where did it happen? What happened? Who did it happen to? So there are bases of things that will stay the same, but telling the story on different mediums is going to be different. Radio, theater of the mind, television, you can visually see that there's been 3 goals scored. You can see that. I mustn't come repeat that. It's how did it happen? Why did it happen? So, yeah, there are different ways depending on the medium that you're reporting on.
Okay, I'm seeing a question here from Peju saying that, okay, say now I want to get into the industry, but I feel like I'm not a good storyteller. Is it possible that I can work on my storytelling skills and it improves over time for me to be a good sport broadcaster, or is it an inborn talent?
No, you can definitely, oh my gosh, you can definitely work on it. And I think even being in the industry doesn't mean that you stop doing the work on it. You continue to try and develop yourself further and further and further, fine tune yourself, write more, you know, read more. I've always said to a lot of people coming up that you need to be able to look into the mirror and consciously give yourself a report. Is it interesting what I've said? Did I say anything of substance? What can I change? Do I need to speak slower? Did I miss a point? So you can definitely always improve on your storytelling. Like the question you asked about working with Robert and Carol, you then also get to see how they do storytelling. You see how they develop and change. And those are also things that you can do. Take leaves from other people's book if you feel like your storytelling is not good enough, but work on it. Practice makes perfect, man.
Okay, then for you, it brings me to my next question. I think Edward says, please ask Thato, what has she learned from working closely with Robert Marawa? Now, based on what you just said, in terms of sometimes you get to take a leaf from someone else's book, working closely with Robert Marawa, what did you personally decide, you know what, I'm going to take this and I'm going to work on that personally, and it has actually worked for you moving forward?
Um, Working with Rob was so much fun. It was beautiful because he's such a consummate professional. One thing I learned about Rob is that he's not just a television presenter. When he would walk into studio, he would know where the correct lighting is supposed to be. He would know if, let's say, the audio guide that you might, he knows every single element within that, which helps you a lot if you know every element and you know what the lighting is for. Why do I need to be sitting in this position? Why do I need to? So he's someone who doesn't just take himself as I'm a presenter and let's go. No, he actually knows every single element in the television space, which I've learned that very well. I can get to work and also be of assistance and not always be assisted.
I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. And just looking at your story, okay, now we're talking about the different stories that you've told. One that comes to mind, the most memorable story that you've told in your career, and why?
Yo, I don't know. Hey, um, I think sometimes you go to work and then the minute you leave work, you completely forget. I've told so many interesting stories. I've sat down with a lot of very, very interesting people.
Mm.
But top of mind now, I can think of something where, shoot, FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 in New Zealand. Um, that was something that was very close to my heart. I cared a lot about that.
Why?
It was so, it's a woman um, telling stories of women, women who are raising our flag, women who, African champions, people doubted them already. Um, we didn't have so much media flocking to go to New Zealand to tell their story, you know? And it also just made me realize how important it is for us to tell those stories. If nobody tells those stories, no one's going to hear those stories. So the FIFA Women's World Cup was something very, very special for me.
Okay, now that you say you probably have forgotten most of the stories that you've told, but has there been one where you felt like, yo, this is a very difficult story to tell, but one way or the other, I need to get myself to a point, Elong, where I need to say or tell the story so that the viewers actually understand what is happening here?
Sure, I can't think of one, eh? Um, hmm. Uh, Probably also AFCON. When there was that stampede at Olembe Stadium, and having to go there the next day and realizing that just a few hours ago there were people unfortunately who lost their lives in this very position. You know, when you've got like a frog in your throat, but then you you have to really, really tell the story. So yeah, I think that was something that was hard, but the story needed to be told. And yeah, it was, yeah.
I can just see you going through the emotions yet again, in terms of how difficult it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, people tend to ask, Corey, if you are on radio as a radio presenter, on TV presenter, then you come and being called as an MC to come and MC an event. Do you find it hard to switch from one to the other, or do you do one and the same thing in terms of how you put your hat on as a presenter, regardless of which medium you're on?
Yeah, it would be regardless of what media you're on. Obviously, it's completely different. With emceeing a gig, there's people in front of you. You're not talking to a piece of camera, metal. On radio, it's different. You can literally wear anything and be anywhere and tell that story. But it's still you who's telling the story. It's still they still need to know everything, whether it's radio, television, or emceeing. They still need to know the bulk and the core of that story. So no, you still have the same hat. You just do it differently. It's like print media. You know, we still want to know that Orlando Pirates are through to the 18-8 final. That's still the crux of the story. But you still wear the same hat, essentially.
How do you then set yourself apart from the rest? What do you think sets you, Thato, apart from the rest? Have you ever sat down and actually thought about it?
No, not really. I haven't. I think essentially as people, we're all different, and we all have different roles to play. So I can never, no matter how hard I try, be like somebody else. I can go and copy every single thing they do, everything, but you can never be that person. And I think it's very important to still have that sense of identity, that sense of this is who I am. And so, yeah, what makes me stand out? I'm different. I'm different. That I do know. We all can't be the same. Yeah, we all can't be the same. I'm different.
I think maybe
I have
just
a
to
lot of
change,
fun.
maybe
I have a
perhaps
lot
you
of
are very
fun.
fun. Yes, yeah, that one definitely. FUN with capital letters. But I think just to hone it down is a lot of people actually ask me this question: how do I find my authentic voice? I'm struggling. Yes, I'm seeing someone who I want to or I aspire to be like, but I don't want to mimic this person because obviously I'm different. Exactly what you just said that, listen, I am someone that is very different, but how do I find my voice?
Yeah, man, you really just have to stand out within a crowd. Like I'm saying, I think a lot of the big mistake that people make a lot of times is to try and mimic someone exactly that. You see someone who's in a space, to me, the people will even start using the same words. It's like, come on, make it make sense. And it's like, really? But I get it. I get it, especially when you're not in the space. You need something a basis. You need a template. But take that template and then make it your own. Because to me, we're always going to forever say, man, but will we ever remember who Dumi is? No. So it sounds cliche, but be yourself.
Okay, guys, they say be yourself. I'm seeing these questions coming in. Yeah, we're running out of time. Pink Grape says, I'd like to know how you approach sensitive matters, especially on interviews, both mediums. For example, when a team just lost, how do you then approach the interviews because they may be emotional at times?
Losing is not emotional. There always has to be a winner and loser in sports, right?
Yeah.
But you approach
Actually,
it
no,
the
you know
same.
what? You've just done an interview with someone who is a Casta Semenya, right?
Yeah.
Who has a story that one side it can be very controversial, and one side obviously it's a good story. However, overall it's a very positive story because she's fighting for those that are coming after her. But then in those moments where you know that you need to touch on those controversial parts of the story, how do you do that? Or the sensitive parts?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important, objectivity. Objectivity, even if a story is sensitive, there's always a proper way to approach something. Um, I don't just go off the block, off the bat, come with a question that already has some sort of nuance where I'm inserting myself in my opinions. No. What I'm here to do is to collect information. And after collecting that information, give it back to the audience as it is, and I'm making it concise. But if you go in there thinking already it's controversial, and the way you ask the question, and you're now literally asking 8 controversials out of 10, what do you expect? It's like a barber psychology type of relationship. It's a give and take. There is a way that you approach it. You ask your subject, can we talk about this? If not, that's fine, but we still need to get that information out. At least I've told you already, and you understand what it's going to come. But it's
Yeah.
in the manner that you ask that question. Sometimes I think a lot of us don't realize that our questions are so loaded. They come with so many innuendos already. So it needs to be an objective question that gets you the answer. Because all we want are answers. So your question needs to be objective, and you know that you're going to get an answer from that. Sometimes, yes, the subject matter might get a bit blown away, taken aback, but you bring them back into this conversation. You bring them back. It's really a skill, knowing how to get information from people while making sure that this interview still gets me more. Where now all of a sudden I've asked you a controversial question and boom, there goes the interview. You now don't want to be responsive anymore. So it's really a feeling of energies, a give and take, but making sure I get the key information out.
Then how do you say one can go around being a good interviewer? Because I'm assuming what you just said right now, you said it's how you ask the questions, because
Yeah.
you can ask those questions that are yes and no answer.
Mm-hmm.
And you like, no, but I don't just want that yes,
Yes
or
and
I
no
don't want you to
answer.
close off. Yes, I don't want you to close off because of the question that you just asked also. So how do I make sure that my skill of interviewing improves?
It's a people skill, to me. um it's a people skill. Talk to people, be interested in people, people watch, see what kind of characters people are wherever you go. Talk to people, find out about their lives. Then you'd actually get to see what is easier for people to open up and what is not easy for people to open up. Sometimes you'll find someone who's so shy and they don't know how to open up. But you notice that they do have passion and want to talk about it. So you find a way to, I don't want to say soften up your subject, but a way to make someone open up. I ask you a question, I see that you're very coy. I come back with this question in a different manner. You're still very coy, but then I go and ask you something that I know that you're comfortable with, and then you open up. And then 3 questions later, we go back to that question, and voila, there you go. This person's now fully elaborating this long story. I heard this and this and this and this happened. So there is an art. Like I'm saying, it's like being a barber. It's like being a hairdresser. It's like being a barman. You know, um, making sure that people feel comfortable and safe to tell you and give you that information. Yeah.
I think I've got an example. I see here Coach Jerry Shabalala just asked me to ask you if you're wearing Michael Jackson socks. Well, are
Hi,
you?
Coach Jerry. No.
Listen, we have unfortunately run out of time, but a lot of people are asking if we're going to save it. Definitely going to save it and post it on YouTube. Coach Jerry, you just opened Tato up. As you can see, she's just naked.
Yeah.
Tato, before I
The
let you go there,
story with those socks. We were doing AFCON in studio, and it was so cold. So I would wear my socks with my high heels, and then when we went on air, I'd take off my socks. But there was a time I forgot to take off my socks. Yeah.
I get where it comes from. Before I let you go, in terms of advice for those that are starting in the industry that want to hone their storytelling skills, what's your word to them?
Um, Realize that there's a reason why journalism exists. You are the gatekeeper, the defender of the defenseless. So stick and make sure that your pen, your tongue, your mind is your sword. Continue to do the right thing and tell beautiful stories. Again, talk to people. Trust me, talking to people helps.
Talk to people and tell beautiful stories. Well, there
Yeah.
you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us, Thato. It's always a pleasure chatting to you and always great learning from you. I saw people asking, are we going to save this? Yes, I'm going to say that again. We're going to also post it on YouTube. Tato, thank you very much. And listen, oh, by the way, she is nominated for the G Sports Awards. If you don't know what G Sports Awards is, it's women in sports being celebrated. You that woman in TV, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Can we still
excited to
vote?
be nominated. No, voting closed on the 31st, and I'm
Ah,
nominated with wonderful, wonderful women within the broadcasting space. So very excited about that night. Yeah, man, I just want to spend the night with women in sports, enjoy, celebrate what a good year it has been. So I can't wait for that.
we're crossing our fingers for you. Gonja, when is it? It's on the.
In September the 12th, I think.
Okay, I
Yeah,
think it's September the
yeah.
12th, and you can be able to watch it on Supersport or SABC. I think the information will come up as time goes on. But thank you very much to everyone that joined in. Tato, I love you. Mwah. All the best for the G Sport Awards. We'll be rooting for you. And other than that, follow her. It's Thato Moeng on social media, and also you can catch her on Supersport. And where else, actually?
Yeah.
Are you still on Vision
Ah.
View?
Ooh, no.
No. Oh, okay. Supersport is the place to go, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Congratulations on this wonderful masterclass. I must say, big kudos and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, then. Good night, guys. Bye.
Bye.